Ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome to my channel once again. In this video, I have outlined the functions and responsibilities of the staff handling registration and admission as per NABH 5th edition.
Differences between registration and admission. Any patient coming to the hospital for the first time has to be registered with a unique identification number, called the registration number. Both OPD and IPD patients have to be registered on first visit to the hospital. This registration number is permanent and does not change, it remains the same for all subsequent visits of the patient. A separate admission number should be generated for all patients who are getting admitted. The admission number is not a permanent number. Each time the same patient gets admitted, a different admission number should be generated for the patient. The admission number helps to identify the different dates of admission of the same patient. Each patient's permanent identification number is the registration number. This registration number should be linked to the patient's admission number. Patients are identified by their registration numbers, not by their admission numbers. As per NABH, generating the registration number and the admission number are mandatory. These three types of admissions take place in a hospital: walk-in, emergency, transfer in or referral. Walk-in. Patients who come for planned surgeries, or patients who come to the OPD and are advised admission for further treatment. Emergency. Patients coming to, or brought into the emergency department of the hospital. It is important to remember that, under no circumstance should an emergency patient be turned away. If you do not have the facility to treat the patient, give whatever treatment you can, before referring or transferring the patient to some other hospital. Transfer in, or referral. Patients who are either transferred to the hospital from other hospitals, or are referred for admission by other hospitals, or other doctors. This is a diagrammatic representation of the registration and admission processes. Here it is clearly indicated that patients coming to the OPD only go through the registration process. And patients coming to the IPD go through both registration and admission processes. If a patient is getting admitted for the second time, then a new admission number is generated, the registration number remains permanent and unchanged. The three different types of admissions are indicated very clearly in this diagram. Explanation of unidentified patients has been given in the following section. Unidentified patients are persons who are brought into the emergency department by the general public. Such patients should not be denied immediate and proper treatment. Examples of unidentified patients: road accident victim, person falling into a manhole, person found lying on road, victim of building collapse, or wall collapse. You should follow proper registration and admission processes for unidentified patients, as per your hospital's guidelines and as per legal requirements.
Scope of services of the department should be defined and documented, and should be commensurate with the scope of services of the hospital. Should be understood well by the department staff, and should be communicated to all. Should be reviewed periodically and kept updated all the time. It is important to note that defined does not mean that the scope of services has to be displayed. If NABH has specified that it should be defined and displayed, then it has to be displayed mandatorily. But, as a good practice, you should display your department's scope of services in a prominent place in your department. Scope of services of the hospital should be defined, documented, implemented and displayed prominently at locations which are clearly visible to the patients and visitors, and also to the hospital staff. Should be in consonance with the treatment facilities and infrastructure available in the hospital. Should be displayed at least in 2 languages, making it easy for all classes of people to understand the display. The scope of services of the hospital should be reviewed periodically and kept updated all the time. The staff handling registration and admission processes should be well conversant with the scope of services of the hospital.
Administrative policies and protocols. Administrative policies and protocols of the department should be developed, documented, implemented and reviewed from time to time, to ensure their continued suitability. The policies and protocols should be communicated to all the staff in an appropriate manner. Must consist of at least the following: duty hours and staff strength. If the department works in shifts, then shift-wise staff strength should also be defined, along with the timings. Organizational chart of the department, showing the reporting structure and the designations. Behavior code and disciplinary rules. Moral and ethical values. Dress code and cleanliness rules. Competency matrix, this means, the minimum qualifications and experience required for each designation. Job responsibilities and authorities matrix of each staff, this means, the staff should be suitably skilled, qualified, experienced, and competent to perform their respective tasks. This matrix should be reviewed periodically for continued suitability, and changes should be made wherever required. The staff should maintain confidentiality of patients' data. This is a very important NABH requirement. Should not discuss the patients and their medical conditions with each other in front of others. Registration and admission processes. The registration and admission processes for OP, IP and emergency patients should be defined, documented and implemented well. In the IP section, patients should be registered and admitted as per the hospital's scope of services. That means, only patients who can be treated and cared for as per available resources and infrastructure should be admitted. If the resources and infrastructure are not available, then the patients should be referred to a hospital which has the facility and infrastructure to treat them. In the OP section, patients should be registered only as per hospital's scope of services. That means, if the hospital cannot provide the treatment, then the patients should be referred to a hospital which has the facility and infrastructure to treat them. It is NABH requirement that patients coming to the hospital for registration and admission must be explained in a language they understand. In the emergency section, remember that no patient should be turned away. Take a patient in even if you do not have the facilities to treat the patient. Give your best treatment to the best of your abilities and stabilize the patient. After that, transfer or refer the patient to some other nearby hospital, which has the facility and infrastructure to admit the patient.
General informed consent for treatment. It is necessary to have a general informed consent for treatment. During registration and/or admission, this general consent should be explained to the patients and their family members in a language they understand. This consent can be taken from the patients or their family members by the registration and admission staff. Defining the contents of the general informed consent is the responsibility of the hospital management and the doctors. Examples of contents: the name of the admitting doctor, the estimated cost of treatment, the possibility of cost escalation in case additional procedures are required to be performed, the risks and benefits. This general consent can be made a part of the registration form or can be a separate form, and it should be bilingual.
Managing patients during non-availability of beds. Admission during full occupancy, the hospital management should define, document and implement a procedure for admitting patients during non-availability of beds. It is for the management to decide whether to direct the patients to another nearby hospital, or accommodate them temporarily in some alternate facility within the hospital, till a bed in the desired category is available. This alternate facility should be adequately equipped with essential infrastructure and medicines. Examples: ventilator, monitor, life-saving drugs. The cost factor of such temporary admission arrangement and subsequent transfer to the desired category bed should be explained to the patient and family members in an understandable language. Admissions, at no point of time, should be forced upon the patient. Admit a patient only if the patient and family members agree to it. Admission of emergency patients during non-availability of beds. Such patients will have to be mandatorily accepted into the emergency section for treatment and/or life-saving stabilizing treatment. At no point of time can such a patient be turned away from the hospital. Admission of patients to ICU during non-availability of beds. Admitting patients to the ICU is done as per medical parameters decided upon by the treating doctors, and placing these patients in the ICU becomes a medical necessity. It is for the hospital management to define a protocol for accommodating patients into the ICU during non-availability of beds. Interdepartmental transfer of patients during non-availability of beds. Apart from the regular registration and admission services, the staff are also responsible for ensuring proper interdepartmental transfer of patients. Examples: transferring patients from ICU to ward and vice versa, transferring patients from ward to OT, and from OT to ICU.
Transfer in and out or referral of patients. While transfer in means IP patients brought in from some other hospital, referral can mean both IP and OP patients are referred to your hospital by some other hospital. Referral can also mean referring both IP and OP patients from your hospital to some other hospital. All transfer in and referral patients should be registered and admitted as per standard protocol of your hospital. While registering, admitting and transferring patients, the staff have to ensure that at no point of time, the patients are inconvenienced. Some of the causes of inconvenience can be delay in booking the required bed, non-availability of bed, wrong allotment of bed because of lack of adequate information. One reason for this can be poor interdepartmental communication.
Estimated cost of treatment. The procedure for explaining the estimated cost of treatment should be defined, documented and implemented well. Estimated cost of treatment should be given to both OPD and IPD patients, preferably in writing and countersigned by the patient or family member, as a token of agreement and acceptance. The registration and admission staff can prepare the estimated cost of treatment based on the hospital's pricing structure, and in consultation with the treating doctor. As a good practice, you should include an estimated cost of treatment section in your hospital's registration form, or general informed consent form. As per NABH, patients and their family members have the right to know the estimated cost of treatment, which should be explained to them in an understandable language. They should be explained that the estimated cost may escalate, depending upon medical progress made by the patient, and need for further procedures, interventions, or investigations. Uniform pricing policy. It is the responsibility of the hospital administration to ensure that the pricing policy is uniform for both OP and IP services. All classes of patients should be charged uniformly without prejudice. There should be a tariff list for all the OP and IP services offered by the hospital, and it should be made available to the patients, family members and visitors, as and when requested by them. This tariff list should also be displayed at the registration and admission desk, or somewhere near it. There should be clarity and transparency in the billing process, with charges indicated and explained clearly for each category of service. Patients' feedbacks and complaints. These play an important role in helping you to understand the standard of your services, and what further actions are required to improve them. You could develop your own method of collecting feedback, analyzing them and taking necessary actions to resolve the issues. It is important to remember that, actions taken by you to resolve the issues of the patients, should be shared with them and their family members. Be very transparent in all your dealings with them. Typically, registration and admission services have much more to offer than the processes discussed in this video. Your hospital's service goals will decide on the processes that you will need to adopt. My aim here has been to impart information on the basic requirements of good registration and admission processes, as per NABH.
To conclude, if you need any further information regarding any topic related to quality management and process management, please put them down in the comment below. I will try to do justice to your requests in my new videos. If you have liked the information that I have shared with you, then please like my video and subscribe to my channel. Once again, thank you very much for watching till the end. Have a great day.